Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another podcast on MMA Unhinged. Welcome back to another installment, another episode of the Marc-André Silva MMA show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. How are you?
I'm grateful to be back, and I think this is a very monumentous week for the UFC because it's the beginning of an 11-week stretch that we're going to have a UFC event on every Saturday, nonstop. I think this is going to be a really fun time for the UFC, and it's going to wrap up with UFC 300. So we're on the road to UFC 300. This is going to be the biggest event of the year. But first off, we gotta get our appetizers going. Our appetizer is UFC Vegas 85, Imavov versus Delice, and also we have to talk about that very controversial UFC 297, where we saw new champions crowned. We saw controversial decisions, and we saw a lot of Canadian fans walk out unhappy.
Absolutely. You mentioned it, so let's talk about it. UFC 297 went down in Canada. As you mentioned there, a lot of Canadians went home unhappy with some of the results, disappointing. And obviously, there was a lot of, should we say, controversial, close. I don't want to say robbery. I feel like that word gets, thrown out a lot, but they were close. They were close fights. And we'll talk about the first one because that was the close one as well. We'll talk about the main event of the evening. Dricus du Plessis versus Sean Strickland. We both talked before we went on air, and we kind of both see it the same way. Oscar, you scored it 3-2, potentially 4-1. Sean Strickland, talk to me about that. Why?
Before I talk about the scoring of this fight, before we were on air, we were discussing Dustin Poirier potentially being out of UFC 299. And right now, Brett Okamoto just tweeted something, and apparently it is true. He is out of the fight. He said that they never actually signed the contract and they could not come to terms on a deal for the fight. So, fight's not happening. It's heartbreaking. That fight to me was better than some of the fights on UFC 300. So the fact that it's not happening is really disappointing. And I hope Benoit can still get a fight, maybe against Beneil Dariush.
Yeah, that's a lot to take in. 2 minutes into the episode, Dustin Poirier is out of the fight. So interesting. And I feel like this has been quite a regular occurrence, if I'm not mistaken, but from the UFC. We've had that quite a few times of late where they've announced the fight, they put it on the fight card, but the fight is not actually signed. It happened with Sean Brady versus Luque.
Yeah, it happens a lot with Paulo Costa fights. The guy it's not happening until the fighter actually signed the contract. Dana sometimes gets a little too excited, if you will, and just goes out there and announces stuff.
Yeah, a real shame from the UFC, from Dustin Poirier. Obviously, he probably wanted that fight. Benoit would have definitely wanted that fight. But back to UFC 297, Oscar. You scored it 3-2, potentially 4-1 Sean Strickland. Talk to me about that. I agree on the 3-2 Sean Strickland. I believe he should have got the nod that night. But talk to me. Why did you think Sean should have got the nod?
I felt that Sean was landing the cleaner shots and he was landing them more often. For me, I saw a lot of big misses from Dricus, and Sean was landing consistently with that jab. And before anybody goes out there and says the jab does not have the same impact as those shots that Dricus was landing, Dricus was real busted up by that jab. It's not all about the cosmetics, I know, but that was an indication that Sean was landing those shots clean. And for me, there wasn't like a moment where we saw Dricus rock Sean. I was concerned for Sean. So it comes down for me to the volume. So I have to go with Sean Strickland. I 100% gave him round one. Even Dricus gave him round one. Round two, I gave to Sean as well. Round four, 100% was a Dricus round. Round three could have gone either way if you ask me. Round five, 100% was a Sean Strickland round. So I really feel that he should still be champion. But the judges disagreed, and now there's this. I feel like there's this big war on social media between Dricus fans and Sean Strickland fans. Sean Strickland fans, which really covers the majority of the fan base, they all feel that Sean won, and maybe we get a rematch someday. But right now, it's looking like Dricus will have to defend that belt at UFC 300 against Israel Adesanya.
Absolutely. It was a close fight indeed. I'd love to see it happen again, go down the line, but obviously next, Adesanya, as you mentioned, is the most likely adversary for Dricus du Plessis. Not too sure when that will happen. Maybe UFC 300 that has been thrown out. I'd love to see that happen. Maybe UFC 300 it would be, I would say a worthy main event. Adesanya has that star power. So yes, a close fight in the main event between Dricus du Plessis and Sean Strickland. We'll keep it swiftly moving over, and we've got a story of two different chapters here. The main event, exciting, good to watch, technical battle. The co-main event for the vacant bantamweight 135-pound championship, the UFC women's one. Raquel Pennington beats Mayra Bueno Silva by decision in probably, I would say, not the worst UFC title fight ever, because we had Rose versus Carla Esparza, but it was sure damn close, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy this one at all because to me it appeared that both women could have gotten finishes, but they just showed poor fight IQ. Raquel Pennington was doing so well with her boxing, and she just clinched her every opportunity she got, putting herself in danger continuously. I was frustrated by the performance, and I kind of was hoping that the fight would end sooner than it did. But hey, at the end of the day, my pick was exactly correct. If you listen back to the show, the past episode, I said Raquel Pennington would do her best work in the clinch, would win this with her experience, and that's exactly what she did. So that's the only positive I take out of this. And now on to the Juliana Pena fight for Pennington.
Absolutely. That'd be a good fight down the line. Juliana Pena, sorry, versus Raquel Pennington. Fantastic one. Look forward to that one going down whenever. I know Raquel Pennington wanted to return September, August. She gets the belt, Oscar, and then she, after a 2-year layoff, and then has another layoff. What's your quick thoughts on that?
I'm not happy about that at all. I feel like this division needs some excitement behind it. It needs some movement. That's not the way to go. That's really a bad decision on her part, but it looks like there's really some room for the new signee, Kayla Harrison, to make some noise in this division soon enough. So we'll see how this division looks in a couple months, but I do think that it is in danger of being eliminated because there's not a lot of young talent coming up.
Yes, you want to see the ball rolling in divisions like this. So 100% agree there. Next one, Neil Magny, in an emphatic, spectacular, dramatic comeback against Mike Malott. And I believe this might have been the Told You So fight of the week, Oscar, if I'm correct.
I'm pretty sure that was Pennington versus Bueno Silva. I'm pretty sure it was, but we disagreed on a lot of fights.
Yeah, definitely on this one. I think you went with Mike Malott in this one, and I went with Neil Magny.
Yeah, you did. This was the case, and what an upset! What a comeback! I feel like Mike Malott. The only thing he really you can take away from him here is his overconfidence, inexperience, and just lack of cardio. Because once this guy gassed out, he was absolutely done. It didn't matter that he had his way with Neil Magny for 2.5 rounds. When he was gassed, he had nothing to offer whatsoever. And Neil Magny has done this to so many guys. If you can recall the Hector Lombard fight, a fight where he was dropped, in danger of getting finished, he comes back and gets the late TKO. Neil Magny is a cardio machine. He proved it once again. And Mike Malott was just severely overconfident.
Yeah, fantastic from Neil Magny, a real veteran performance, showcasing. He's been around the block for a while, and showcasing why you can never rule out a veteran. You can never rule him out. Next one, Chris Curtis, one of the first few split decision losses from the Canadians this night. He gets a split decision victory over Marc-André Barriot. This one, it was quite a close call to fight. Close fight to call. Sorry. I expected more from Chris Curtis going into this. Not that I rated him I thought I rated him more highly than Marc-André Barrios. Obviously, I thought, obviously, no disrespect to Mark. I just thought maybe Chris Curtis should be going in there, maybe locking him out, looking good, and calling someone out above him. But then again, I feel like sometimes the finish gets away from him too much, and I think this is another case. He just couldn't get that finish.
I really enjoyed this fight. I saw some people saying they weren't thrilled about this fight. I really enjoyed it. These guys were constantly in the pocket, swinging big shots, always throwing those elbows. I really enjoyed the fight. I thought that a judge scoring it for Marc-André Barrios was a little ridiculous. I feel like he was pretty much outclassed in definitely at least two of the rounds of this fight. Chris Curtis just landed the bigger shots. He's a much better MMA boxer, if you ask me. So for me, Chris Curtis really showed up in this fight. And he said that he knew he was winning the fight when the fans were booing because Marc-André was not landing clean. He's got that Philly shell just like Sean Strickland, and he put it to good use here.
Absolutely. Good win for Chris Curtis. Would have been good for him to get the finish. I mean, I'm probably expecting too much, but from what I've seen from Chris Curtis, he knocks these guys out and, looks good on camera, talks well as well. Next one, Movsar Evloev versus Arnold Allen. This one, bitter pill to swallow. Obviously, don't like to see Arnold Allen lose, any Englishman lose, but Arnold Allen on the wrong side of a unanimous decision loss. Sorry. Allen showed a lot in this fight, I do believe. Showed heart, and he'll never give up on himself, never quit, never give up on himself. He'll always try and obviously win the fight, and he showcased that till the very end. But what we saw here was Movsar Evloev just had a little bit too much for Allen.
Yeah, I thought that this fight was a very close fight, and Arnold Allen got screwed over largely in round three. Depending on what country, what state you are in, the rules are very unclear on the down opponent thing. I just think it's a little silly when a guy tries to play the game like that, tries to protect himself by putting his hand on the ground. I just don't like it. And Movsar Evloev was given time to recover following those knees. And I picked Arnold Allen, round 3 TKO. If there's no ref interference, I think he has a good shot at finishing that fight in round 3. But to me, the big takeaway from this fight was Movsar's striking is improving. In round 2, he hurt Arnold Allen big time, and we never see that happen to Arnold Allen. The guy's very durable. So Movsar is getting better, and I expect his next fight to be for the title.
Absolutely. The Ramlin Dad is also in the chat. What going on, the boys? He has a funny accent. I'm joking, Ramlin Dad. Nice to see you on the weekend at Octagon 52. It was a pleasure. Oscar, this is a friend of mine on Instagram. He's a legend. He's done some good interviews there at Octagon MMA 52. Appreciate it. Appreciate you sticking around as well. Yeah, I completely agree with what you said about Movsar Evloev. You look good. Showcase it. 18-0. What's next? Quickly, what is next for Movsar? Who would you like to see him take on?
I say put him in there with the champion, Alexander Volkanovski, who I think is going to run through Ilia Topuria.
Yeah, that's a very, very close fight. I would love to see what happens there. Next one, Garrett Armfield versus Brackettona. A really close one. We talked about this one before we went on air. You felt like Brackettona should have got the nod. Are we still with that?
I do think that Brackettona could have won this fight very easily. I feel like he barely edged out. I think it was round 2. That was the round that decided this fight. I think it was a very close fight. And yeah, just a tough night for the Canadian men. They went 0-7 on this night, and this could have been one of those wins, but it just wasn't meant to be. And any discussions about biased judging, I think it can be thrown out because we saw Canadians lose a lot of close fights.
Absolutely. The Ramlin Dad giving his 2 cents on obviously the Arnold Allen situation. Unfortunate to see Arnold lose, but we move. He's the meal deal king of England. It'd be interesting to see what happens next with him. He's still a player. 145 pounds. Definitely be interested to see what happens next. I'll be looking forward to it. But yeah, completely agree. Brackettona has all the tools to get this one done. Just came up short. Probably should have got the decision victory as well. Next one, Sean Woodson versus Charles Jourdain. on paper, this was a fantastic fight. Sean Woodson, a lanky 145-pounder versus Charles Jourdain, very tricky, unorthodox on the feet. Split decision victory for Sean Woodson. For as much, I really enjoyed this fight because maybe the stars of matchups were just so good to watch. They were both just low, tall, lanky, throwing some really heavy shots. This one was good to watch. Did Sean Woodson, in your eyes, is Sean Woodson the correct winner?
I think it was really weird that one judge scored it for Jourdain. I was rooting for Jourdain. He really looked sloppy in this fight. We saw a lot of desperate attempts at landing strikes against Woodson. Woodson used his boxing and his reach to good use. I feel that Woodson was frustrating Jourdain. He couldn't get anything going. I picked him to win by submission in round 3 via guillotine. He almost got it done in round 3. It was so close, but it just wasn't meant to be. And the confusion after the fight was just so strange. I felt that Sean Woodson clearly won the fight, and anybody who disagrees, I think, was just watching a different fight. And Rambling Dad podcast says Woodson clearly won the fight, and yeah, Woodson just did so well. He utilized the range incredibly. I agree with everything you said.
Absolutely. Sean Woodson got the job done. I still think it's incredible how he makes £145. It's ridiculous. When you see his frame, he's like a skeleton. It's crazy. Next one, Rahman Tavares versus Serdi Sidi. That name is still fucking tricky for me. £139. Obviously, it was meant to go down £135. A rematch. Rahman took this one, and this one was close as well. Tavares, was on the back foot looking for them heavy shots. CD was pushing the pace. In your eyes, as a judge, pushing the pace, being more aggressive, throwing more shots, would that have got him the victory that night? If you were the judge, would you have gave it to CD? Do you think he was unlucky again? Maybe.
Yeah, once again, I think a Canadian kind of got screwed over here. I felt that City's cosmetic damage really did him no favors here. I felt that as soon as we saw that blonde hair turn red, the judges kind of whenever they saw a close round, they gave it to Tavares. But it was City who had the higher output, and he was doing great work. I think Tavares really overperformed in this fight. This was so different from the first fight. I thought City was going to steamroll him. I was wrong. I really underestimated Tavares. Tavares is very tough, and he's going to stick around in the UFC a long time. Very fun fight to watch. I think it's insane that this got robbed of the fight of the night bonus. It was better than the main event, if you ask me. I really think City should have won this one.
Absolutely. First 4 fights of the evening were 4 finishes in a row. It was a fantastic way to start off the card, and we'll talk about them first. Jimmy Flick obviously getting an arm triangle choke. Jasmine Jastovicius getting a dark choke. Another submission victory by Sam Patterson. Hey up, the British guy getting it done over there. And Gillian Robertson showcasing her, her ability on the ground and getting that TKO finish. She's only ever got 2 TKO finishes in her career, both in Canada. A special place to her heart. Obviously, she is from Canada. We'll start off with them 4 finishes then. What's the one that most impressed you, Oscar? The one that you look back on and you say that's a good victory.
Yeah, it's very easy for me to say that it was Jasmine Jastovicius. This was one of the greatest performances in UFC history. Just a complete domination across the board. I think the final strike count was 326-26. A 10-7 round was scored in round 2. It's as good as you get without getting a finish, which, actually, she did get that finish in round 3, but in terms of racking up points, this was one-way traffic. I loved her performance out there. And, of course, Sam Patterson getting that very easy rear naked choke in round 2 and round 1. That was incredible. Sure, he got cracked with a good one, but I think this guy can do better now that he's not cutting as much weight. And for Jimmy Flick, that was easy work. Malcolm Gordon just had no regard for Jimmy Flick. Sure, he was a much better striker, but the guy kept on going into his guard, man. That's where Jimmy Flick gets it done. I feel like he fought with no fight IQ, and Jimmy Flick, of course, took advantage of it. And yeah, those underdogs, Sam Patterson and Jimmy Flick, I feel like that was easy money for us. I really thought that they should have been the favorites. And you see how easily they got it done on the ground once they got their opportunity to do it.
Absolutely. Another legend at Octagon 52. Fight Talk 247, absolute legend. Good to see you at Octagon 52. And I was running around and being busy and stuff like that, so apologies for that. But yes, as Rambling Dad says there, Fight Talk my G. Absolute legends in the chat. Thank you very much for joining us. Stick with us because we're going to move on to UFC Fight Night. Delidze versus Imavov. A good, fantastic main event. Middleweight matchup. Two top tens going at it. Roman Delidze, Georgian, Nasruddin Imavov, French guy, heading over there, obviously in America, UFC Apex. I'm sick and tired of these UFC Apex cards. I say this every week. But anyway, Roman Dolidze versus Imavov, 185 pounds. Oscar, this one, I said to you before we went on there, it's all I said about. I thought Roman Dolidze was going to win, but I'm worried about the cardio. I'm not too sure how much he's going to hold up. He has a lot of finishes in his career. He likes to finish his fights. He's got some heavy hands. He's got some good wrestling. He's got some good grappling. I think stylistically and technically, I think he's a better fighter than Nasruddin. But the cardio, that's the problem here. That's what I feel like I can't get past. If we get into the fourth, if Imavov can survive, if he gets into the third, fourth, the fifth, I just see him taking over, and that's where I see trouble and potentially Roman Dolidze getting finished late in the fifth or the fourth.
Yeah, this fight is very tricky for me. I would not advise betting on this fight because I think there's so many question marks about these guys in the championship rounds. If it was a 3-round fight, it would be much easier to pick. But at the end of the day, I do have to go with Roman Dolidze in this fight because he's got the wrestling on his side. I think he has more physicality as well. Guy used to be a light heavyweight, and he used to have this really effective submission game. Doesn't use it as much these days. These days, he likes to box more. And when he fought Marvin Vettori, he showed me who he really was. He had struggled before with cardio, but in that fight, he was not struggling with it as much. And he stood toe to toe with Vettori. I thought you could have scored that for Roman. So I do think that this guy's leveling up. And Nasruddin, I think, is doing the same. But we've seen in the Phil Haas fight before, the guy can get taken down. And it's a real possibility that Roman could have better cardio than Nasruddin because when Nasruddin fought Sean Strickland in January of last year, the guy was absolute toast by the time he got round 4 and 5. The guy, of course, he didn't quit, but there was just nothing left in the tank for him there, and that's why Sean Strickland looked so incredible later on. So, at the end of the day, we could see if we're going to see a finish, it would probably be Roman Dolidze getting a knockout or a submission on the ground. What he did is shot to Jack Hermanson was so impressive, getting that calf slicer TKO. I think on the ground he can outclass Imavov if it gets there. And over time, I do think that him landing those huge hooks on the feet could really help the judges out in terms of just deciding which shots have more impact, just like we saw with Strickland and Duplessis.
Yep, completely agree. I'm also going with Roman Dolidze. Potentially, I can even see him finishing that fight early. But before we get into that, Rambling Dad, an absolute pleasure, mate. Have a good luck with the bedtime duties. Good to see you again. But yeah, I completely agree. Roman Dolidze, I think he's going to get the job done. Potentially even a finish. If you look at Nasruddin Imavov, if you look at his 4 losses, he went on a bit of a streak, but he lost to Sean Strickland, lost an accidental clash ahead versus Chris Curtis, lost to Phil Hawes. If you look at that loss now, how that is aged, is crazy. But that was early in his career. He went on a little bit of run, obviously beat Ian Heinisch, Emma Shabazian, Joaquin Buckley. This one, I'm going to go with Roman Dolidze. I completely agree. Maybe a finish, and we'll see what happens. If we look at Roman's track record of finishing fights, it's not too bad. Obviously, he beat Jack Hermanson, finished him, finished Phil Hawes, finished Carl Dorcas. The guy comes to fight and he comes to finish. So I would probably go with that as well. Co-main event, Moicano wants money. Renato Moicano versus Drew Dober in a lightweight fight. This is fantastic. I love it. Renato Moicano is a fantastic fighter. He's got a fantastic personality. And he speaks his mind. He went on the MMA Hour and he said, the UFC fighters, they do not like the Apex fights. They don't like him. It's not, it's too boring. He doesn't like it. And I completely agree. I said that earlier on. But as a fan, watching at the UFC Apex, when we have fights, in crowds, it just doesn't compare. Really doesn't compare. Um, Anyway, back to the matchup. Moicano versus Drew Dober. Both, have been around the block inside the UFC for a while now. Drew Dober more so had a lot of fights inside the UFC. This one quite a tough one to call. Drew Dober, obviously 27-12 in his career, coming off the back of a TKO win versus Ricky Glenn. Ronaldo Moicano, he's coming off a submission victory versus Brad Riddell, and ultimately sent Brad Riddell into maybe half retirement. Oscar, this one, according to Tapology, is a 50-50 split down the middle. Who have you got?
I really think that Drew Dober is going to continue his knockout record, and I think he gets that first round knockout. I just think Renato Moicano has a wonderful skill set. He's got really good jiu-jitsu. His striking is really underrated. He once outclassed Calvin Kattar on the feet. But at the end of the day, the durability is lacking, especially since he's moved up to lightweight. He's fighting guys with even more power. So he's had some fights where he can coast through. The Brad Riddell fight was a stand-up performance, obviously, but Brad Riddell, I think, is definitely on the decline. Drew Dober, on the other hand, still shows that he has a lot to offer. And his submission defense is not great. We saw him get submitted by Benil Dariush and Islam Makhachev, but I do think that those guys are better wrestlers than Renato Moicano. I think that Drew Dober can expose that Renato Moicano chin once again. Renato Moicano knocked out by Fiziev, knocked out by Korean Zombie. And even in the Dos Anjos fight, the guy took a really awful beating. I think Dober, he's got the most knockouts in the history of this division. I think he's definitely able to get that knockout here in round one.
Well, this could be the told you so fight of the week. It's a 50-50 split, but according to the Tapology users, and I'm going Ronaldo Moicano. I'm going for a submission victory, obviously. He done it to a previous striker in Brad Riddell. And Brad Riddell, obviously, Tiger Muay Thai coach, instructor, fantastic striker. I see Moicano getting the submission here, but very close fight to call. It'd be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. That's the co-main event. The next one is potentially even better. Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikov at 170 pounds. This one on paper should entertain. Randy Brown, he's a gamer. He likes to fight. Rude boy. Muslim Salikov with one of the best nicknames in MMA, King of Kung Fu. This one quite close to call as well, in my opinion. Randy Brown coming off a win versus Wellington Turman. Probably too much we could take away from that. Wellington Turman not had the greatest UFC career. Muslim Salikov coming off a loss against Nicholas Dalby 7 months ago. Salikov almost about to turn 14 years old. This one, Oscar, who have you got and why?
I think Randy Brown is the smart pick here. As you pointed out, Salikov is aging, and I just think that Randy Brown does very well against the guys that are aging. He's just got a tremendous reach. He does have durability issues, but we've seen his defense overall improve. He can get out of the way with his head movement, the shoulder rolls. I think he does very well at range, and I just think that Salikov will be beaten to the punch constantly in this fight. Even though he's from Dagestan, not really a wrestling threat. So Randy Brown, I think, will just pick him apart from distance with his jab and win a unanimous decision.
Yeah, agree. Randy Brown with an 8-inch reach advantage. That's pretty ridiculous. Like what you mentioned there, beating to the punch. Absolutely, every day of the week. Next one in the main card, Viviana Araujo versus Natalia Silva at 125 pounds. Viviana Araujo with a bit of obviously a loss streak, as you can see. Obviously lost to Alexa Grasso, lost to Amanda Rivas, and then beat Jennifer Meyer in the last one. Jennifer Meyer ultimately got released from the UFC after that one. If you look at her opponent, Natalia Silva, she's been on a bit of a win streak inside the UFC, 4-0. Jasmine Justovicius should beat Teresa Beleda. She's beat Victoria Leonardo, and she's also beat Andrea Lee in her last one. She was quite, I would say, bit of a heavy favorite, minus 290 moderate favorite according to Apology. And I'm also going with Silva because you know why, Oscar Silva?
Why?
Because you never bet against the Silva. That's what you told me.
There we go. Yeah, and I agree with you here. And honestly, I think Natalia Silva is one of the best Silvas in the whole UFC right now. Uh, she used to be considered more of a one-dimensional jiu-jitsu player, but she took time off and she came back a really good kickboxer. She can stand with anybody in this division and look good doing it. Araujo, on the other hand, is getting a little up there in age now. She's if you see right there, it's
37.
37 years of age now. It's a 10-year age gap. Silva is constantly improving. Her takedown defense is good. So Viviane Araujo cannot get the wrestling going, so she's going to have to stand with her. And I think that Natalia Silva will have more volume. Her kicks are so much better. I think she styles on her and moves up the rankings again.
Yes. This one's gonna be a fantastic one. But next one as well is gonna be an absolute. This one as well. I talked about some few. There's a few prelims that I'm looking forward to, and this one here. No, this is not even a prelim. A few fights that I'm looking forward to. And this one, next one, is the one I'm looking forward to. Ali Akshab Kizarev. I don't know how I'm gonna call him Ali. Moving forward, Ali versus Mahmoud Muradov. Obviously Mahmoud, touted, Floyd Money Mayweather, a fantastic boxer. Ali in his last fight got the rear naked choke against Dennis Talulin. There is anything that we can probably take away from that. Dennis, unfortunately, wasn't UFC standard. He wasn't UFC caliber. Didn't have the best of UFC crews, so there's probably not too much we could take away from that. But you look at the names that he was booked against: Carl Dorcas, Wellington Turman, Alessa DeChico, Abus Magomedov, Jacob Malkoun. I think that shows that the UFC are believing in this guy. He's got some high level talent, and I'm riding with it as well. A lot of finishes in his career. This guy is an absolute savage. Showed it in his first fight inside the UFC. Showed it in Contender Series, and I think he's going to show it against Muradov as well. Muradov, been around the block, 33 years of age, and as of late, got that win against Brian Barberena, but he lost to Kaya Bahela. No shame in that loss. Lost to Gerald Meerschaert, got submitted. Obviously, who does submit against Gerald Meerschaert unless you're top dog? But before that, you had some good wins. Obviously, the flying knockout against Andrew Sanchez, as we can see here, and the Trevor Smith overhand right, which absolutely flattened him. Nonetheless, I'm going with Ali Hachib. Who are you going with, Oscar?
Yeah, his we have is a monster when it comes to grappling, and on feet he can hold his own as well. Muradov, on the other hand, I think is one of these. I hate to say, but it's a bit of a failed prospect. The guy was looking good early on. He had really good matchups, but the Gerald Meerschaert fight, that was a bad look. Meerschaert is not the most durable guy, and he had Meerschaert dead to rights, and his cardio fell apart, and he got submitted. I think the same happens here against Kizriev. Kizriev maybe will be challenged by the striking early on, but one takedown and a couple submission attempts, and I think he's going to be on his neck. And Muradov should probably submit here. I'll say round 2.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to that fight. It's going to be a good one. Next one I'm looking forward to is the return of Gilbert Urbina versus Charles Redect. Charles Redect heading into this UFC fight 8-3. Obviously, he was positive. He was what's the word? Sorry. Successful in his UFC debut versus Mike Mafina. That one, I'm not too sure where that went down. That was Blood Diamond, I believe. It just came up Mike Mafina. So Blood Diamond. Gilbert Urbina, obviously related to some of the Urbinas that we've seen inside the UFC, 170 pounds. We saw him with tough. He won against Orion Koski. Front kick to the body, finished the fight. His only losses come to Brian Battle, obviously, on the tough final, and against Sean Brady. No shame in them losses. And that Sean Brady loss was 5 years ago. Other than that, he's looked good. So he's a slight favourite. I'm also going with Urbina. I think he gets the job done. I think his grappling, it's not too bad. I think his striking is really, really good though, and I think he pieces up Charles Redect.
Yeah, I think Charles Radke is just a little short on experience here. It wasn't long ago when this guy had a very average record. I think it was like 3-3 or something like that. he's had really tough moments on the regional scene, and Urbina also had his challenges as well. He was knocked out in the Ultimate Fighter House. That's not on his record because that's an exhibition, but that was a tough loss for him against Trayshawn Gore. And then he goes to the finale as the replacement fighter, gets submitted by Brian Battle, but really no shame there. This guy is really big for welterweight. He's got a decent submission game. He can use his kicks. He can use his reach. I think Charles Radke might be in for a real challenge here. I think Charles Radke is going to have to look to wrestle here, but I don't think it's going to work out for him. I think that we're going to see Urbina be the better kickboxer and use his kicking game to just outskill Radke here, who I don't think he's got an A+ skill here really. So it's gonna be a rough night for Radke, in my opinion.
Yeah, completely agree. Next one, Molly McCann taking on Diana Belbita, a rematch, unusual rematch as well. Molly McCann, 1-0 against Diana Belbita. They've both gone down in weight since that fight, and now they rematch at 115 pounds strawweight. Molly McCann, I think we've got to put it out there. We've got to put it on, plain and simple, on the tip of the tongue. Has been looking terrible. She's got submitted versus Jordan Sorilenko, a fight that she should be winning. Obviously, I was there to watch that fight in London. It was upsetting. It was a tough defeat for her, 100%. This one, she heads into it, obviously beating Diana Belbita. She's going to have that, more confidence. She ain't going to be the most confident woman in the world because of her last two fights, getting submitted by Erin Blanchfield. That one we could put under the rug because we know how good Erin Blanchfield is. But her last one against Georgia Stolienko, that's a rough one. That's a tough one to take, especially in the first round. It wasn't good. She's a moderate favourite, -230 according to Tapology. She looks to make 115 pounds for the first time in her career, and I believe this could be a good move for her. She looking at 125 pounds, she looked a little bit like there was a lot of excess weight there. There was weight to lose, and I feel like she'll come to this fight 115 pounds. And I've had word off her training partners that she's in shape. She's in shape. And about last week she weighed 122 pounds, which that's not too bad. That's about 7 pounds to cut before the weight cut. And that was last week. So I presume she's even slimmer right now. So I don't think the weight is going to be the problem. I think she's going to be really in shape, and I feel like we're going to see Molly McCann maybe not back to her best, but getting the victory, getting just over the line. I feel like she's going to get the victory, but who knows? I'm rooting for Molly McCann. She's popped here in the UK. Obviously, I'm going to root for her. But talking it as a stylistic point, I think she's going to get the job done. She's beat her once. She's going to be more confident heading into this one. Obviously, the confidence isn't going to be sky high, as I mentioned. She's a 2-fight loss streak, but I think she gets the job done. If it goes to the ground, it's always going to be problems for Molly McCann. She can't really go there. She has to keep the fight standing as long as she can. Her boxing, her hands, her elbows, they're all good. That's what she needs to utilize and keep the fight there and win the fight.
Yeah, so I actually disagree in a sense that she has to keep it standing. These two already fought, and Molly McCann did not keep it standing. She went out there and she took her down 5 times and had her way with her. So I think that Molly McCann can use the wrestling advantage that she has in this fight and just really smash her on top if she wants. Belbita is strictly a kickboxer, not a submission threat at all from what we've seen. I do think that if it stays standing, we also know that Molly McCann is a lot more aggressive than Belbita. It's kind of a shame that this is not in the UK because Molly McCann, especially if you remember the Luana Carolina fight, the Hannah Goldie fight, she comes out guns a-blazing and does really well. But it was just that the Stoliarenko fight was a bad matchup because it was a grappler. But this time around, she can let those hands fly and just be more free out there. So I think she's going to perform really well. And she's also going to have the confidence now that she's down a weight class that she can use her size a little more in this fight. I think she's going to win this fight very decisively, and she's going to get a unanimous decision win here.
Yeah, a good one to call. I'm going Molly McCann. You are still going Molly McCann, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So next one, Charles Johnson versus Azat Maxim. £125 flyweight. You know how I love the flyweights. Charles Johnson needs this one desperately. 3 losses in a row versus Ode Osborne, Cody Durden, and Rafael Estevam. And look who they pair him up against when he's on a three loser streak. A 17-0 Kazakhstan. Oscar, your thoughts on this? Who gets it done? Does Azat ride into this one? Obviously, he's made his UFC career against Tyson Nam, got the decision, split decision victory. But does he go to and own the UFC versus Charles Johnson?
Yeah, I just think this is a rough fight for Charles. He's taking it on short notice. His wrestling defense is lacking, and he's taking on a guy from Kazakhstan with good wrestling and knockout power as well. So wherever the fight goes, it's not going to be very favorable for Charles Johnson. He's not going to be prepared for the wrestling. And even when he does have a full camp, the guy struggles to avoid getting taken out. Sure, he can get up, but he's going to get put right back down by Azat, who I think is a really good prospect in this division. So it's a very easy pick here. Azamat decision.
Yeah, agree. Next one, Temba Garimbo. Obviously, the Rock's friend, the Rock's favorite friend. I believe so, isn't it?
Yeah, he's the guy that was gifted a house by Dwayne Johnson. Yeah.
I got worried for a sec. I thought I got the wrong guy. But yeah, Garimbo, friends with The Rock. Well, not friends, but, The Rock helped him out because of his story and stuff like that. Taking on Pete Rodriguez. Obviously, as you can see there, he came into the UFC, got knocked out by Jack Della Maddalena, and then returned against Mike Jackson. Yes, Mike Jackson, who fought CM Punk and knocked him out. This one, to be honest, I'm not too sure why Pete Rodriguez is inside the UFC. He's still very young. He's only 5-1, inexperienced. Garimbo, I think, has some talent as well. If you look at his career inside the UFC, he lost against AJ Fletcher, but his last one he beat Takashi Sato. If he's beaten Sato, I look over at Pete Rodriguez, and I think Sato had a good run back in the day, beat some good guys. I just don't think Pete Rodriguez is near UFC level, and I think Garimbo is going to just be maybe just a few levels above him. Just beat him. Don't know how he's going to beat him. He trains at a good gym. Well, they both do. Garimbo trains at MMA Masters, and obviously Pete Rodriguez trains at MMA Lab. I'm going with Garimbo. I'm not too sure how. I don't know when, but I think he gets the job done. I'm pretty confident he does.
Yeah, I agree with you here. Garimbo, I feel like maybe he's going to have more motivation now that he knows that somebody believes in him, and now that he knows that in a way, with all that new fame in Zimbabwe, he's got like more support behind him. I think he can go out there and get an easy takedown and get a rear naked choke, just like he did against Takashi Sato. I think that he's got a serious physicality advantage here. Rodriguez, I think, has more pure knockout power, but it's not going to matter. I just think that Rodriguez is really raw talent, as you pointed out. So I think there's so many holes in this game for Garimbo to take advantage of. Garimbo trains with Colby Covington and Mikael Baeza. I think he's in good hands, and he's going to keep on improving. And absolutely, I think The Rock is a very nice guy for doing what he did for him. And let's hope that it doesn't erase the hunger that he has to become champion, because this guy, we saw his setup in his gym, in his living situation before that house. He was living at the gym, and every day when he woke up, he would see a list of the things he was grateful for. And the sole goal was basically to become champion and to take care of his family. So let's hope that that hunger continues. And we'll move on to the next fight. I really like this one. It's between Blake Builder and Jiyong Lee. Jiyong Lee, this guy is one of the guys coming out of Asia. The UFC wants to build their market over in Asia. They got the road to the UFC tournament going. I think this is a really solid spot for him to perform out there against Blake Builder, who I think is who's just a little too reckless at times, and he's very hittable. So once again, I have to go with Jiyong Lee. I think he wins this pretty easily with his striking. I'm gonna have to pick him by decision. Do you agree there?
Yeah, completely agree. The Builder hasn't been that bad. He obviously beat Shane Young. Obviously, in his last one, he did lose, though. But Jiyong Lee, I think, is a good prospect. Good £145 prospect. I'm riding the hype as well. It's good to see an Asian prospect come through. Hopefully, he may be the second coming of the Korean Zombie. You never know.
Yeah, he's one of I if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the proteges of a Korean Zombie. So I do think that those are some big shoes to fill. But for me, Builder kind of lost all his hype when he went out there against Kyle Nelson and just got battered post to post. I'm not big on the guy. And next fight, Stoliarenko versus Carolina. This one's pretty easy to break down. Carolina is a Muay Thai kickboxer. Stoliarenko is a judoka. You know, this is your classic striker versus grappler fight. And I'm gonna have to go with Stoliarenko because she moved down a weight class and against Molly McCann, she made easy work of her. So I think the only way she wins fights is by that armbar. And I think there's been it's been proven many times that Carolina's submission defense is very poor. So I'm gonna have to go with Stoliarenko first round armbar.
As you can see, the armbar. It's crazy. It's crazy, isn't it? And if you look at Carolina, obviously lost against Molly McCann, but that was a spinning back elbow, so I can't really take too much out of it. But, you know, she got submitted versus Ariana Lipsky. That was a knee bar at the time, so I don't know. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm also going with Georgia Sorienko. That one, you know what she wants to do. It's just whether you can stop it. It was a bit like Ronda Rousey. Obviously, she's a judo specialist as well. They look for that. They look for that armbar. It's just whether you can stop it or not. And I don't think Carolina will be able to stop it. She's got the long limbs as well, so it'll be even better for Sorienko to be able to grab the armbar. Next one, 155 pounds. Marquel Meridos versus Landon Quinones, another tough veteran, I believe, as well. Landon, I believe, went on to the Ultimate Fighter, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken. And he will be fighting Marquel Medeiros, 155 pounds. According to Tap on the Juniors, they've got Medeiros 74% are choosing Marquel, 175 favourite. This one, as you look on paper here, very close to call. 5'10 versus 5'9, 69.5-inch reach versus 70 reach advantage. Oscar, who have you got, Landon Quinones or Marquel Meridos?
This is a tricky fight. Both of these guys are going to look to strike out there. So, especially when you have developing guys like this, it's kind of tough to know if they're going to come out there and show major improvements, just like Landon did against Nazareth Hackpras. Hackpras has been a staple right outside of the top 15. I think he might have been ranked at some point. He used to be a serious prospect. He went toe-to-toe with this guy and landed over 100 significant strikes in a 15-minute war with him. So he showed a lot to me in that fight. Sure, against Jason Knight and the Tough House, that was a bad look. Got submitted right away. Luckily for him, Markel, not really an offensive submission threat. So these guys are going to be trading shots back and forth. But I think Landon showed to me that he can have a very high output for 15 minutes. And just that alone, and the fact that Markel's the guy making his debut, I think Landon Quinones has learned from his mistakes, and I think he's going to continue to go out there and have a good performance. I think he's going to win a decision in this fight. Offensive submission threat.
Absolutely looking forward to this fight. I was just into the audio, yeah, making sure it's all good. Apologies if you can hear that. Yeah, we're all good. We're all cooking. Fantastic fight. The first fight of the evening will go to the hands of Thomas Peterson versus Jamal Pogue. Sorry. Thomas Peterson coming off the Ultimate Fighter, coming off the Contender Series, and he got that key lock victory versus Chandler Cole, who was on the Ultimate Fighter. He's had a lot of finishes in his career. His only loss comes to Waldo Cortez Acosta, who's inside the UFC now as well. Jamal Pogues on the other side, different. Jamal, he's had a few more fights inside the UFC, 2 fights. He's only lost to Mick Parkin. He's lost before the UFC against Jordan Young, Alex Polizzi, and Taylor Johnson. This one, I would say, is quite easy to call. I think Thomas Peterson, Peterson. Sorry, he's a good prospect. He looked good in his last fight on the Contender Series. He's only lost to Wilder Cortez. He's quite a big boy. He's 28 years old. He's 6'1" versus 6'3". So there's not too much in it. According to Tapology anyway on paper. But I'm going with Thomas Peterson, the train, and I'm going by knockout.
I think this is a bad matchup for Pogues. Pogues, I remember on the Contender Series, said that he was going to drop to light heavyweight after he won because he felt that he was not really in shape in this division. The guy goes out there and stays at heavyweight, so I'm not really sure this guy's taking it all that seriously. And Peterson, on the other hand, this is a guy who's much more of a real heavyweight. He's got grappling, which I think really matters these days at heavyweight because all these guys just want to strike. But if you can take these guys down, it's just so hard to get these big men off of you. So I think Peterson wins this fight with his wrestling. I think he's gonna get a unanimous decision here. I think he's just gonna get takedowns whenever he wants them. And on the feet, I do think you might have to side with Pogues, but it's not like he's got this killer power to worry about. He always goes to decision in this fight. So it's not going to be a really fun fight, but I just think Peterson is going to remind Pogues who the real heavyweight is.
Absolutely. Well, that pretty much wraps that up. That was the first fight of the evening going down. All the way back to the top, Ramadaleze versus Nasruddin Emavov, the main event of the evening, the 185 pounds middleweight contenders of the world. 2 top 10 the middleweights going down at it. This is going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. I think there's a few underrated fights on the card, but I like to ask this every time. Oscar, what's that one fight you're looking forward to the most, set from the main event?
Yeah, for me, it's got to be Dober versus Moicano. I think we're looking at a finish no matter what. We're looking at a submission artist versus a knockout artist. So I think wherever the fight goes, I think we're looking at a finish there. So it's going to be fun to watch. I wish that one was in front of a crowd. But either way, make sure to tune in next week because we're going to be recapping this card and previewing Joe Pyfer's first UFC main event against Jack the Joker Hermanson. So be on the lookout for that one.
Absolutely, and that's a savage card as well, by the way. Co-main event is good. Danny Ego versus Andre Philly. Brad Tavares versus
Yeah,
Robocop. That one makes me smile. So
a lot better.
as well. Wow,
It's a
really
good
good.
card.
Really, yeah, absolutely. Max Griffin, Devin Clark, Zach Alger. Wow, a decent card. We look forward to that one. So as Oscar said, make sure you join us next week. You have to now. So it's going to be a good card as we recap UFC Vegas 85, and we'll talk about. I guess it's in the Apex next week as well. So we'll talk about UFC Vegas 86. Sick of these Apex cards. Absolutely sick of them. But yeah, I appreciate you all for listening. An absolute pleasure. We'll catch you all next week. You got any last sending off words, Oscar, before we let them all go?
Yeah, just make sure to enjoy those fights, man, and enjoy this stretch of 11 weeks with UFC fights. It was a little rough that last Saturday. At least we had the WWE Royal Rumble to watch, but it's just not the same. The fights are just the best thing to watch on TV.
Absolutely agree. Looking forward to it. We've got some fantastic fights, and if I'm not mistaken, have we forgotten about a fight that is it Fury versus Usyk this weekend,
Is
or
it?
is that
I
next?
have honestly, I don't follow boxing as closely, but um,
Oh,
I have no
never
clue,
mind.
honestly.
I'm still a few weeks away. I got happy for a sec.
Yeah,
In the 17th of February, so we're looking about 2 weeks. This Saturday, so 2 weeks from this Saturday, it will be Fury versus Usyk. I got happy for a sec. It's because they released that promo, and I thought it was this week, but I don't know why they would do that on Fight Week. But anyway, it was good. It was a good promo. I'm not too sure if you watched it. Did you watch it?
I did not. No, I'll be on
Yeah.
the lookout for it.
It's an interesting one. All I'm saying is that Turkey Alex he has a lot of money, man. He has a lot of
Oh
money.
yeah, oh yeah.
I like what he's doing over there in boxing, and I'm hoping he comes over in MMA, maybe the UFC. I know he's doing it with PFL, so I'm hoping he comes over and make some sort of not a deal but agreement. But it'll be good to kind of see what mega fights happen at the UFC. Pay per
Yeah,
view,
right
big
now I'm predicting that the UFC fight night in Saudi Arabia is headlined by Hamzat Chimaev versus Jared Cannonier. That's what I'm predicting because it appears that Hamzat only fights in the Middle East, and Jared Cannonier wants that fight. So I say book it.
Yeah, absolutely. Only if you have a matchmaker though, Oscar. Maybe you'd be good. It'd be good to see that fight happen, especially in the Middle East. It would definitely be. But yeah, as Oscar said earlier, make sure you join us next week. We'll catch you all then. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Catch us next week. I hope you enjoy the fights this weekend. Thank you very much, and a goodbye from both of us.